Everybody had a good first week. Is this like everybody's last class of the day for Friday, or
Yes.
yeah,
Yes.
nobody's got anything after this? Okay. So the projector is in fact very green. Put in an ITS ticket on that, and they were very quickly responded that they will work with Epson to correct the problem. So I don't know how long it will be green for, but we will try to cope with it. I don't know. It might just be too much. We might just have to cancel class because of the green projector. Everything you learn will be like with a green tint to it, so
It'll make you remember.
possibly.
I mean, what if I get to work and have to code in blue?
That could be a real problem. I don't know, I think the university might be like liable or something. So I'll start with course logistics. Kind of every time we meet, if there's anything just like course-wise that we need to talk about, we'll do it up front, and we'll try to not spend too much time on it. The major announcement today is that your first programming challenge / the refresher challenge has been posted. You should have all gotten a Canvas announcement about that. You'll see it's listed in Canvas as like 2 assignments. So one of them is the demo that you do for the TA, and they will take care of putting that in once you do it, so you don't have to deal with that. It's just so your grade will show up there once it's in there. And the other one is a file upload for you to upload your code once you've done that. And that file upload one, you can do that anytime between now and the last day of class. It's better if you do it sooner, just in case like you upload the wrong thing or something. We have a few days to like say, can you send the right thing, just to check it off. So let's just look at it real quick. It's a pretty basic assignment for this one, and the submission window opens on Friday, August 30th. And so the way that this works, and you'll see it in Canvas, there's a sign-up link with the TA's availability between now and then. And you can sign up for a slot to go and demo during that time. And I think they're like 10-minute slots, so it's a really quick process. And it'll be that way for every challenge. The thing you're actually demoing is pretty small in comparison to the whole assignment. So.
And it's due by next Friday, by August 30th?
Yeah, so August 30th. And then after August 30th, you have 5 days of potential to still do it, but with reduced points as you go. Yes?
The only sign-up date that's available is the 30th.
Okay. So if Jacob will probably add more sign-up slots as we go. I would go ahead and try to do that unless you have a conflict on the 30th and absolutely can't do it then. In that case, let him know so that he can be sure to get you a slot somewhere else. And if he can't do it, we'll find somebody who can meet your time schedule. So they're still working out, they're trying to get I think another TA or another SI leader that can help with doing these demo processes, because there's like 260 students that have to do it, and trying to do it all in one day is just not.
So is the slot for like meeting him to help us with it, or meeting him to like show him it runs?
Meeting him to show him that it runs, and then he'll ask you to make one small change. And so like in this one, for example, what you do before you go is you get your C++ compiler installed, and then you write some software. On this one, I don't know that you really have to do much while you're there. So here are kind of the main requirements for this one, and that's the first one is to prompt the user to enter text with the keyboard, then do something based on that input, and then output a message. And so in this case, I believe that you'll just be demoing just that. On the other challenges, it will tell you exactly the thing that you'll need to change once you get there. And so you'll be able to like do that ahead of time, but then when you go in there, you take the version without it, and then you just do it right there with Jacob. And we'll go through, yeah.
Is the Canvas submission due on the same date, or do I demo and then like submit on some later?
Yeah, so the Canvas submission part, you can do that anytime up until the last day of class. I'd recommend doing it right after. It's just easy. Make sure you got the code that you ran with him, just zip it up and stick it in Canvas. So we'll go through kind of what we need for you to be able to actually do this today in class. So we should be pretty well set for this one. And let's see if there's anything else. Okay, so yeah, there's the scheduling link. And again, like if none of the slots work for you, first let Jacob know, and he'll probably be able to work it out to get you a different time. And if you don't hear from him or something, which is impossible because he's on top of things, then just let me know and I'll set something up for you. Are there any other questions about?
And it's just like any code we want.
Yeah, pretty much. Just meets those 3 requirements.
And when you say like this same code is the one that needs to be submitted by the end of class?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the code that you have the TA look at, that's the one you need to submit to Canvas before the end of the semester.
And we can just submit it right afterwards?
Yeah, just submit it right afterwards. That's pretty much what everybody does. But it's just there to give you flexibility in case,
Yeah, but before that, we don't need to have it like.
So in this one, you can write this ahead of time and bring it in, and based on the assignment, I'll double check with him. But I don't think for this one that you actually have to do this in front of him or anything. It's just to show that you can compile something and run it. And
C++.
yeah, C++. Yeah, that's a good point. Please do it in C++. So that's what we'll be using, and that's more important later because when we do more complicated things, it helps us standardize it a little bit because the TA obviously can't know every language and every possible approach to something. So we try to set you up with some standardized base code, and that way it's really easy and really quick.
And those instructions are in Canvas.
Yes, these are on Canvas, and yeah, I think they're probably on the front page. There's a link to it, but they're also just this PDF is in the files section, and then the assignments section is there too. All right, so last time we talked about the syllabus, did all of those wonderful things. Were there any questions that anybody had that they thought of since then, or anything you clarified? Cool. I think there were a couple of things that I didn't mention, but just wanted to run by you, and they're pretty basic. So in class, you are free to get up if you need to go to the bathroom, if you need to take a phone call for something important, or do anything like that. That's fine. You don't have to ask me. You don't need to worry about that. Just don't distract everybody around you too much with whatever it is. That's the only thing. And so that's always the case if you need to do something. Same thing if we are in an exam or something like that, and you need to go to the bathroom, you can go. You all know the honor code thing, right? You're not going to cheat on the exam through some scheme where you leave the room or whatever. So I just want you to know that up front. I really never enjoyed classrooms where it was you're locked in here and captive. So a little bit, whatever you need to do, that is fine. And I think that's the only thing that we didn't talk about, the syllabus. So last time we also briefly talked about some of the goals of the course, mostly why we care about these data structures, these algorithms, and analyzing them. And kind of the summary of that is that the data structures are obviously very useful in software that you write. They have a lot of implications. They're important in terms of making things that perform in a way that we know, in a way that's efficient. And they're kind of just a common language of the field, and they'll be really important to you. So that's a quick recap of last time, and I'll try to do a quick recap every time we meet, and not make it last too long. So today we're going to do just enough C++, a review, and actually what we'll do, we'll split this. We may end a little early today. I'm going to do just some very basic stuff today, and then I'm going to do kind of the more interesting, more important stuff dealing with pointers and memory and that part. We'll do that on Monday. So we'll also do some more C++ on Monday. And one of the reasons is that this first week is before the add drop date. And so I don't really like to do too much substantial stuff during this week. Try to give you some stuff to get you going ahead of time, but once everybody's locked in next week, we'll start and the content will be a lot more dense. So these first 2 days are kind of just a little bit easygoing. So the two things we're going to do today, we're going to look at setting up a development environment and then just writing some basic C++. So the development environment that we're going to do, we're going to use, or the demo here, is Visual Studio Code. It's free. It works on Mac, Windows, Linux, so it's pretty widely supported. And it supports C++, supports all kinds of things, and it's very common today. So on the slides, also I guess I should tell you, so after lecture I will always post the slides, and then I record a screen capture of the slides and just the audio from the computer here. That's not a guarantee, like sometimes it goes away, but if I just do that so that if you miss a day or something and you just want to scrub through it real quick just to see what happened, it's a little bit easier that way. And those are just posted on Canvas. So also on slides, I usually put at the bottom will be like a link to source material. So it's either material that I looked at when I was like writing the slides up, or it might in some cases be resources that are just useful for the topic. And so you can always find those down there. All right. So just to kind of give a little refresher about C++, and like we were talking about installing this compiler, and kind of just the idea of a compiler. So if you've used languages that are kind of more like scripting languages, typically Python is one, JavaScript is a popular one. They're more of, and I say more of, they're interpreted languages because there's a little bit of it's kind of a fine line you can draw, depending on where you want. But for C++ and C, and languages like that, compiled languages that we would usually call them, what's important to remember is we start with our source file, and it's usually more than one file, but and that's just a file that's written, in plain text. And I'll let you think about what is plain text really, because that's actually an interesting question. But we'll just accept it, right? We write it in text that we understand, the language C++, and then we hand that file off to the compiler. Okay? And so there are a number of compilers for C++, depending on the platform you're on, depending on the architecture of the platform. All of these things matter with this. But they're abundant, and pretty much everything is going to have something for C, C++. What the compiler does is take that representation of what we've written that we understand and turns it into something else, an object file in this case. And then there are, when you're in your source file, you might import something, include something, just some standard library. Those libraries have their own kind of object files here. And then there's this process, the linker, which links those together and converts it into something that we can actually run on the architecture. So that's just kind of something to keep in mind, just to remember how that model works as we're going along. So whereas something like Python, right, you just invoke Python on the actual code itself, and it takes care of kind of this whole process. And when we have our development environment set up, it does all of this for us. We don't really have to do anything except hit the play button, and it goes through all of these steps. But it's good to know that that's what's going on kind of underneath all of this, and that's it's important, I guess, when the more complicated your projects get, right? And you will have a problem somewhere in this pipeline where something doesn't link because it's not available, or there's a compatibility issue. Like if you're working with something that was developed a long time ago on one thing and it's made its way to you. And so this is something to always think about. It's not incredibly important to know this in detail for this course, but just to be aware that that's what we're using. Okay, so we will look at Visual Studio Code. It's beautiful and green. and using it for C++. This is not the only option. It's just a really convenient one. It's a really popular one. When like I learned to program like a million years ago, we just used a text editor. It didn't autocomplete anything. It didn't have like colored syntax. You wrote everything correctly in the editor, and then you invoked the compiler from your terminal, and got your output. You can still do that if you want. Obviously, this is modern convenience, and if you go into the software industry and you're writing software as a job, you won't be doing things probably at that low level. In most cases, you'll be using one of these tools. All right. So this is a link for Microsoft's guide just for getting everything set up, and we're going to go through exactly kind of what they tell you to do, but it's there. There are a lot of options with this development environment. You can install like 1 million extensions, you can configure 1 million things, you can really customize it to what your workflow is. So that's good. I wanted to ask, so we're gonna look at this on Windows today, but okay, how many people use Windows or plan to use Windows for their primary like development environment for C++? Mac. Anybody using Mac? Okay, cool. Any Linux? Okay. Which Linux?
You already know the answer.
What is it?
Right now on my laptop, I have Arch.
Okay, cool. Great. So it will work on all of these things, and obviously a million other things will work on all of these platforms. The TAs, they'll be most familiar probably, I think, with VS Code on all these platforms. And you'll hear me interchangeably call it Visual Studio Code and VS Code. When I was young, Visual Studio was a product, and then Microsoft made VS Code, which was a separate product, and now they have changed VS Code to just be Visual Studio. So I will use those interchangeably. They're probably not completely the same. There are probably still versions of like the big Microsoft Visual Studio that you can get for old things. Okay, so let's look at installing it. All right, so we are going to try to do this. On Windows. How many people are using Windows 11? Okay, a lot. Cool.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. Okay, this is actually not the account I want. So there are a lot of fun Microsoft things that we will experience as we do this. And they are actually outlined pretty well in Microsoft's documentation. Okay, here we go. So this is just that link that I had on the slides for you that kind of guides you through this. And right now, I am just maybe, there we go, okay. So this is just an Azure desktop that I'm on right now. So I just created a new Windows machine, and once it reconnects, we will be able to use it.
Do we have to use Visual Studio?
You don't, no, you don't have to use it.
Yeah, because could we just directly download the dev C++?
It takes up a lot of storage.
Yeah, it does take a lot of storage. Yeah, you can do it however you like. Yeah, like you can install a C++ compiler. You could install a different development environment if you wanted. Does anybody have like a different editor that they like, or yeah?
I use Microsoft Visual Studio, but not Code.
Not the code. Okay, so yeah, so it's still
It's still
being.
Microsoft's thing.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Anybody else got anything? Yeah.
Qt Creator.
Okay. Yeah, that's good. So yeah, there are lots of options. Let's see.
So does it matter? Because I know with Dell C++, like the actual program, because that's what we use in community college,
Mhm.
it's like versions of it. We got to get the most updated version of it.
You don't for this class. Everything we do will be well supported on pretty much any version of C++ you're going to find. I mean, you probably want to get the latest stable release of anything that's out there. Oh no. The cloud has betrayed us. Let's see. Oh, are we like not connected to the internet? Seems that way.
Yeah, ED-ROM's been weird.
Okay.
It's been disconnecting and reconnecting this entire time I've been here.
Well, that is very nice of it to do. All right, I'm gonna drop off of it for a second and then drop back on. If it doesn't come back up with us, we will go ahead and talk about coding some things, and then we will come back to installing the development environment afterwards. Yeah, okay. Yes, I can move the window. So we're connected for now. So this is the website that kind of guides you through setting up Visual Studio Code. It starts, just choose your platform kind of thing. We will choose Windows. And so you can download the installer to get started. So there is an option here that has to do, this is kind of like the first thing you'll encounter, and in some cases it may complain at you about this, where you can install either as the user or the system, and there are some trade-offs as Microsoft presents here. I'm going to try to do it just as a user on this system. I did, when I was going through this before class, do it as an admin, and it was just nagging me about things, so we'll see what happens. All right, so we'll download the installer, and it will thank us. Okay. And so that just gives us this nice executable, which we will run. We'll accept this, but not read it. And I tried to pick a fast virtual computer, but all right, so I'll go ahead and let it launch. All right, and so here we are in Visual Studio Code, but we don't have any support for C++ at this point. So what we'll do is I'm going to jump back over here to this documentation, and let's see. What we need to do is kind of choose one of these, for lack of a better word, one of these packages of like a compiler and everything that VS Code will use. So Microsoft offers an option that is just their stuff. And then there's kind of the subsystem for Linux option, and then there's another option, and all of this is in the documentation. Let me just grab that. So So this will walk you through, for C++ specifically, setting up that environment. And so here are kind of the options in terms of Windows. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and use this option that is the min-GW for Windows. And the reason I'm choosing this one, you can definitely use like the Linux subsystem. Because I'm running on a VM on Azure Cloud, it does not always like the virtualization that comes along with the Linux subsystem. So I'm going to choose this one, but you can use anything on this page to get set up and going. So I'm going to go ahead and download this other installer. And all I'm doing here is just following literally the instructions that are on this page. So it's nothing exciting or anything like that. Okay, and then we're just going to click through it with its defaults. And it will start to do its thing. While it does that, I will let you look at these wonderful instructions. So I will say I found this surprisingly easier on a Mac than on Windows, which was weird. But it's really taking its time. Wow, 50%. Okay, we're going to talk about C++ while that happens in the background. So I'm just going to jump over here to an already installed version that is working.
So is it
And
like doing it that way is for mostly for like somebody got MacBook so they can able to install it? Because can't we just download it straightforward on other softwares?
so this is the way to do it on Windows. You can choose some of these other options that are probably a little more streamlined, like the Linux subsystem, depending on if you have it installed, or just straight up like Microsoft's what they provide, which is just kind of in the wizard that pops up when you go into it. I'm not using it because it doesn't work on the virtual machine, but okay. So let me run that real quick, and then I'm going to paste this in there. And all of this is just to get the compiler and your environment set up for Visual Studio Code. And so if you are, I will post all of these links that you saw me go and copy and paste on our Canvas. They are on the Discord that's set up for this course. I think they're in tools or something like that. But I'll be sure to put them on Canvas so you have each of these links individually. I mean, they're all stem from this page, but I'll add these in particular. And if you have any trouble with this process when you're doing it, TAs can help, SI can help, I can help. Just let us know. It should be pretty straightforward. How many people have this already like up and running, have C++ good and going? Okay, so a few, yeah. Okay. So yeah, it's definitely not a big thing like once it's up and going. It's like just fast enough that I don't switch over, but then it, yeah. Okay, we'll switch over for a second. Okay, so let's just talk about C++, kind of the basics of everything. So I am just in VS Code on this Mac right now, and I'm in a project that's just a folder. And so let's just create a new file. So we're just going to write some basic C++. So let's just do like printing out hello world, that kind of thing. So if you remember in C++, if you want to use the library, it's an include, and in this case, it's going to be, I'm going to use IOStream. And then, oh, hello, Copilot. So if you're using AI, things like this will happen for you automatically. So we are going to turn that off for a second. And so what we want to do is, in C++, does everybody remember that there is this concept of namespaces that exist? And so essentially, you can always go like the long way to something by like using its namespace and then 2 colons and then its identifier. Or if you would rather just kind of take a shortcut, you can, at the beginning of your file, say which namespace you're going to be using, which namespaces. In this case, it's a standard namespace, and that'll just mean that we don't have to prefix things with that as we go. So, of course, C++, does everybody remember where the entry point, like for a C++ file, is? Main, yeah, int main. So it's the method main, and the return type is an integer. Who remembers why it's an integer return type? What that means?
Can't use decimals.
That's true. You can't use decimals. Anybody know like what integer it's returning and what meaning it has? What?
Return 0.
Yeah. So it returns errors or like success to the OS, the process that launched it, really. So in kind of the standard case, for this really simple example, we're just going to return 0, which just means it's all good. Once the process is over, it tells whatever invoked it, everything was fine. If we had like an error and we wanted to like tell the operating system or whatever process had launched it, we might send back like a -1 or a specific code that is standardized so that it would know. Okay, so how do we print something in C++?
You gotta use the cout.
Cout, yeah. So we'll use cout. We'll use this operator, and then we can pass in this case, what is a C++ string, and we'll talk about the difference between C++ strings and C strings next time, because that'll be like, it's just a minor detail, but it's an important one to remember. So I'll just put in hello world here, and then within C++, there is a special defined variable here, just endl, which is it's an inline character, but because it can change depending on platform and all these details, it's easier than just putting like a \n or a specific thing. So this should be a valid C++ program, and so I will just click debug, and there you go. There's hello world. So I have mine set up to launch this terminal for me with giant font so you can all see it. But In most cases, you can just use the terminal that's built in down here at the bottom of the IDE. So, and I mentioned all those settings that are available in VS Code. They're like in these, so these JSON files that have automatically been generated by VS Code, and you can set up, preferences that you have for these things, and it's all documented on the website. So like in this case, the preference that's doing that is I have this external console true, just because I want that larger display to pop up so that we can see it. All right, let's check on our install over here. Ooh, 49 out of 58. Okay, we'll go back over here. So that's a very basic C++ program. In case you would like to do this the old way, so this is just the same directory, and here is the basic C++ that we wrote. And in this case, I'm just going to use G++ that I have installed, and I'm going to do basic.c++ and run that. And what it will produce, if you remember, just by default without specifying, is a a.out file. That's just the default name. And then I can run a.out and get hello world. So if you prefer to do that, you can do it that way. And you can also work with a terminal down here within VS Code too. So if you don't want to open up an extra terminal for that. So let's go a little bit more with the basic stuff. Are there any questions? If you have questions as we go, just shout them out. I know this is like very, very simple right now, but just trying to get you in the mindset of the language. So let's go ahead and do one that's just maybe like simple input or something. Okay. So again, I'm going to include IOStream here. And oh, I typed it wrong. And this is kind of, we mentioned this in the first class, like Copilot versus just like the IDE telling you things like this. Like this is fine. This red underline, like you don't know how to spell include, and it tells you how. That's not a problem. What's more of a problem is if we turn on the Copilot in here. So let's try that. So there you go. That's free code. So if you haven't tried this before, I'll just demo a little bit of Copilot for you. So let's just say for the user's name. Oh, it's easy. Okay. Oh yeah, that's a good idea. I'll do it that way. Oh, no more suggestions. So now what? I don't know. So that's, if you haven't seen this kind of working, this is how that goes. You can kind of just prompt your way through the software, and it's really convenient, but not something that we're going to do. So I'll go click on the thing, and I will disable completions, and then we will honorably delete this code. Okay, now it's just us. Back to, just notice we forgot to put the namespace in here. Okay. So we can just ask for a name, and so now who remembers like the basic way to do input, like from the console? CN, yeah. So CN is the kind of the simplest way just to grab it if we're just doing like a text thing. And then as we go, we won't spend a lot of time in here doing like validation. Like we'll assume that like most input is what we think it will be, but we'll do a little bit of it, kind of like making sure things are like, an integer when they're supposed to be and not like a word or some letters or something that doesn't make any sense. So I'll go ahead and make a string just to store the name in. I'll just declare it there, and then I'll do cn to the name, and that should store the name in name for us. And then I can do a cout, and we can just greet them, hello. And then there are many ways to print things, obviously. I'm sure you remember a lot of them. One of the most basic is just to kind of concatenate things along with this output operator. So in this case, name, and then I'll do our end line. And that should greet the user. So if we run that, it will ask me for my name. There you go. Hello Zap. Amazing stuff. Let's check on that install. Oh look, it finished. Okay, so switching context for a second, back over here to installing things on Windows. So we've done this part. What we need to do is add this to our path for Windows. And if we installed it the standard way, it will be exactly this. So I'm just going to copy and paste that. And so I'm going to, I don't know if it will come up here. Yeah, so edit the system environment variables. Oh yes, it will need a password for that. Okay. And so here we can actually add in, the system path variables. Do you guys remember kind of like the idea of like a system path? Essentially, it's like anytime you're in a shell or a working environment, it's this list of directories where things that you need will be looked for. So it's usually just kind of a list of standardized folders for the operating system where binaries of like files that it needs to use a lot live. And so it's just so it knows where to look for things when it needs it automatically. And you don't have to specify it every time that you do that. Okay, so I will see user profiles. I'm sorry, I need user variables. Okay. Did it throw me? Ah, there we go. Environment variables. Sorry about that. Okay, so in Windows, you can do this in like a command prompt or PowerShell or whatever. You can set this, but you can also do it in this nice graphical interface. So I'll do it that way. And I'm going to go to the path variable. I'm going to edit that. And then I'm just going to add the path for what we just installed in there. And I'll click OK, say OK on that, OK on that. And again, I'm just following this guide exactly. And so once I do that, I will need to open a new terminal for it to have the path updated. So I'll go ahead and close this. And I will open a new one. And we will see if it installed. We should get some feedback here as it ponders it. Ooh, it's not recognized. Okay, we'll see if it's installed in the other shell. Let's see if it's any different. I guess I just opened PowerShell by instinct, but we'll see. Okay, it does not seem to find it. Did it just? I had to just close my remote desktop session, so. All right, pull that back up. Let's see, we are almost out of time, but let's see if we can't make this work before we leave. Let me go ahead and show you in VS Code over here. So we've already installed it, and it's hanging out back here. So what you want to do is install the C++ extension for it. So there's just this little nice icon over here for extensions, and there's a million of them. You can just type C++. It's like one of the top ones. It's already there. Click on that. It's from Microsoft. Click install on that, and it will go ahead and add that to Visual Studio Code for you. Okay, and so it gives you this nice little prompt in it. Let's see how you guys can see it incredibly well. But essentially it gives you a checklist to go through. And one of the things on the checklist is what I'm installing in the background. So, and it's got a link to how to do it and everything. Since we are running short on time and this may take a second, I will upload a video of this whole process to Canvas for you in case you want to watch it. I recommend you just go to that website, follow the instructions. It's very easy. If you need anything, let me know. Next time we will get into more detailed C++, like memory, pointers, important things. So Work on your challenge things, but that's it. Have a good weekend.